Hello, world. Good morning, namaste, and Nisam Bulavnaka from Sydney, Australia. I am Sashi Singh, your host of Sashi Singh's Talking Point, and I welcome you this morning to episode 57, live on Facebook and on YouTube. This will be our last program for 2023. As Christmas is just around the corner, there's no point in having a program on Christmas Eve. And I'm sure you, the viewers, as well as the SSTP team, deserves a well-earned Christmas and New Year break. Before we begin today's episode, like always, I request that as we go right around the world by the wonders of Facebook Live and YouTube Live, please share the SSTP page on your own timelines so that we may share today's program with our chief guest with as many interested people as possible. And to ensure that you receive instant notifications for all future programs, please like the SSTP page, and if you can, follow us as well. Welcome to the Thinking People's program, Sashi Singh's Talking Point, live on Facebook and YouTube. Firstly, though, like always, an important announcement to make. Sashi Singh's Talking Point, SSTP, recognizes that questioning, constructive arguments, and opinions are part of conversation, but posts with aggressive personal attacks, profanity, name-calling, swearing, defamatory in nature, and or threatening will be removed immediately, and offenders will be blocked from being a part of the SSTP program. So please, let's all observe these rules and let's enjoy the program. Shortly, we will be joined by our chief guest, the Honorable Charan Jeath Singh, a man who I've known to be a straight shooter and who can talk the talk, I believe, and also walk the walk. He has been known for his no-nonsense attitude, and some may even describe him as being too confident, too cocky, aggressive, and uncompromising. And if that's not enough, Charan Jeath Singh is also a very successful businessman in his own right and does not need to rely on any handouts. Today on SSTP, shortly we will welcome our chief guest. We intend to ask the minister some very hard questions, and let us see if he lives up to his usual description of being that straight shooter type of man when it comes to answering the same. I am really looking forward to talking to our chief guest, and I hope you are also looking forward to the interview. But before meeting our chief guest, it's time to discuss the key happenings of the week in Fiji with our SSTP regular, my colleague Nikhil Singh. Nikhil, welcome to our final program of 2023.
Good morning, Sashi, and good morning to all the viewers, and good afternoon to the viewers in Fiji.
All right, it's our last program, so let's kick it off. Fiji's Prime Minister Sitiveni Rabuka has finally made a visit to the Republic of Fiji Military Forces Strategic Headquarters, also visited the Republic of Fiji Navy Headquarters, and the Queen Elizabeth Barracks in Nambour. There was a lot of anticipation about this visit. What can you tell us this morning?
Sashi, the military commander, Major General John A. Kalanuai, earlier confirmed to Fiji Village News that the RFMF had extended an invitation for an official visit of the Prime Minister. The military says the Prime Minister's official visit sets a platform for discussions on activities related to national security, military preparedness, and strategic initiatives. The military says the visit will foster a stronger understanding between the government and the military while highlighting the collaborative efforts towards the nation's security and well-being of Fiji and all Fijians. The Prime Minister, Sitiveni Rabuka, acknowledged the RFMF for keeping the old traditional customs alive, and he also jokingly told the officers that it was above and beyond his expectations. Rabuka has congratulated the military commander for his leadership and has highlighted that the government is happy with his work. While speaking at the Queen Elizabeth Barracks after the traditional welcome ceremony, Rabuka said that they don't have any issues or complaints about the Major General Kalunuai's leadership, as he has been doing a great job, Sashi.
All right, now sticking with the military, Nikhil, the Republic of Fiji Military Forces Commander Rochone Kaloni Y has acknowledged the need to carry out a review into national security and defense. And Home Affairs Minister Pio Tikunduandua has set the ball rolling and has appointed a former senior military officer to conduct this review. Please let us have more details.
Sashi, Colonel retired James Sandy has been appointed as the independent review lead for the government's National Security and Defence Review. The announcement has been made by the Minister for Home Affairs, Pio Tikunduandua. Tukunduandua says Sandy has an impressive history of service to Fiji and the character of utmost integrity. He adds that Sandy will commence on his role in early 2024 and will report directly to the Minister and the National Security Council. The Minister says that Sandy will have full discretion to undertake the review in accordance with the terms of reference set by the government. The RFMF commander, Rojone, states that the RFMF has a strategic plan in place, but it has not been guided by a defense review or a national security strategy. The commander says now that they have been provided the opportunity, it will allow them to review their role and strategic plan and see how best they can fit into the framework of the coalition government. For a full statement, Sashi, on this appointment by the government, viewers can go to the Home Affairs Minister Pio Tikunduandua's Facebook page as well.
All right, and it will be interesting to see what the terms of reference actually is. And we'll need to keep an eye out for the report when it comes out. Moving on, Nikhil, an Indian government delegation was in Fiji last week. Discussions between the Indian and the Fijian government centered on collaboration in some specific areas. What do you have for us on this, Nikhil?
The Joint Secretary of the Ministry of External Affairs of the Government of India, Paramati Tripathi, made a courtesy visit to the Sugar Minister Charan Jeath Singh, who's our guest today, to discuss prospects for future collaboration in the areas of the sugar industry and multi-ethnic affairs. The meeting reflected on the existing strong bilateral relationship between both nations based on strong historical ties, kinship, people to people connections, and mutual development cooperation. Charan Jeath Singh welcomed the Indian delegation and expressed appreciation to India for all the assistance provided in various sectors to meet the development priorities for Fiji, especially the commitment by the Indian government to build a super specialty hospital in Fiji, Sashi.
All right, and before I let you go, Nikhil, former Solicitor General Sharvadar Sharma's dismissal case will be back in court in the new year. Are we going to get a ruling on his termination dispute soon?
Sashi, as you know, we have been following this case, and there has been some delay, if you like. The ruling on the legal actions brought forth by the former Solicitor General Sharvada Sharma is set to be delivered by the Suva High Court next year. Sharma took legal action against the President, the Judicial Services Commission, and the Attorney General following his termination from the position in November last year. In his application, Sharma contended that he was denied common law rights to natural justice. So we will have a ruling on this case early next year, Sashi, and we will keep tab on this.
All right, Nikhil. Well, thank you very much for your last segment for this year. I thank you for your contribution this year, albeit it was a short workload for us on SSTP. I hope you'll join us again in the new year.
I definitely will, Sashi, and thank you for the privilege of sharing this platform with you on SSTP. It's been a fantastic program, very enlightening from what our viewers tell us. And most importantly, I want to thank the viewers for their continued support. Can't wait to reconnect in the new year. I do want to wish all viewers and you a very Merry Christmas, a safe one, and a Happy New Year.
Nikhil, to you and your loved ones, wishing you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year as well. May this festive season be safe, joyful, and blessed for you. You've been a good fellow this year, Nikhil, I know that. So I hope Santa's going to look after you at Christmas time. Cheers, mate. Be safe, be good.
Thank you, Sashi. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Nikhil Singh. You are watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point live on Facebook and YouTube. And if you can, please like and follow our SSTP page to receive instant notifications of all future programs. To all our new first time viewers, a big Bulavinaka to you and welcome to SSTP. Well, we have our chief guest waiting in the green room, and it's time now to officially welcome him. By way of introduction, our chief guest, some may say, needs no introduction. However, I believe it is important to have a quick look-see as to who is our chief guest. The Honorable Charan Jeath Singh is a very successful businessman and an entrepreneur. He has established his own branded supermarkets, owns and runs hotels, and is into property development. Mr. Singh is also a former mayor of Lambasa and Member of Parliament for the National Federation Party from 1994 to 1999. I wonder how many of you know that Charan Jeath Singh was a qualified pilot for Air Pacific. He calls himself a cane farmer and an agricultural adventurer and owns 2 farms and produces 1,000 tons of cane each year. He was the first cane farmer to bring a cane harvester to Fiji. Last year, he put his name forward for the People's Alliance Party and was successful in the 2022 general elections by being the 6th highest vote getter in the country. He was sworn as a Member of Parliament on 24th December 2022 and later given the Multi-Ethnic Affairs and Sugar Industry portfolio. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome in episode 57 of Sashi Singh's Talking Point our chief guest, Honorable Minister Charan Jeath Singh Ji. Sat Sri Akal, Namaste, Nisam Bulavinaka, and welcome to Sashi Singh's Talking Point. Good morning from Sydney. Good afternoon in New Zealand.
Thank you very much, Sashi. I am very honored to be on your program. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there last week as you were wanting to be there because of my ministerial assignments. I had to be out of the country. However, I wanted to come on a program and give people a full story about the industry and the multi-ethnic affairs that I take charge of as a minister. So to you and Nikhil, thank you very much. And to the viewers throughout the world, I will be very informative and you can ask me as much questions as you want because there's nothing to hide. I'm very transparent and open.
Well, that's a great start, Minister Ji, because as you said, there's a lot to discuss. You hold 2 portfolios. So let's get today's discussion straight underway. As I said, you hold 2 portfolios, that of the multi-ethnic affairs and the sugar industry. Let us begin today's discussion by asking you first up whether you were surprised at the 2 portfolios handed to you by Prime Minister Rambuka when he announced his cabinet lineup. Were you surprised?
Not at all, Sashi. In fact, we had a discussion well in advance prior to election. And the Honorable Prime Minister had indicated to me that should I get into Parliament, I should look after these 2 portfolios. So that was something that we had discussed much earlier than the election. But I'm very fortunate and I'm very thankful to the Prime Minister that he has given me these 2 portfolios to take care of.
All right, now, next week, 24th December, will be the 1-year anniversary of the coalition government. Let me first touch on the multi-ethnic affairs portfolio. Can you please tell us what is the focus of this ministry?
Before I answer to the question, are you saying that we have gone through the honeymoon period and now we are serious in business?
That honeymoon period should have been over in the first 100 days.
Okay.
I mean, there's no more honeymoon period. It's time for accountability, transparency, time to talk to us about what's in store for the country, what plans the government has, etc. But yeah, the honeymoon period is well and truly over.
Well, thanks, Sashi. On the first question that you asked about the multi-ethnic, that ministry, as you know, was previously in the Garasa government. Garasa government had a multi-ethnic affairs ministry, and that was disbanded by the Beni Manawa government. Now, the objectives of multi-ethnic affairs during Garasa government was very narrow in terms of what's to be done and how the community has to be looked after, the minorities have to be looked after. So they were basically focusing, the previous multi-ethnic was focusing on just delivering scholarships, minority scholarships and minor scholarships. This wasn't a victim scholarships. 1 year, 2 year scholarships, and so forth. And of course, then getting the Indian community to be given some musical instruments and so forth. So that was the actual objective of that type of multi-ethnic, in that type of multi-ethnic affairs. But when we have taken over, there has been some seriousness about how we can take care of the minority communities uh, apart from the Ethiopians, which takes care of us of the Chinese communities, the Tuvaluans, the Rambians, the Cuans, the Solomon Islanders, and so forth. So that is how this multi-ethnic has now been established to have a better look in the long term where we can integrate, bring all the communities together with the multi-ethnic affairs.
All right. So, what work has been done with regards to the multi ethnic affairs portfolio? For instance, do you have an office for the ministry? Do you have staff? What is the reality currently in relation to the multi ethnic affairs ministry?
Well, Sashi, in that aspect, we didn't have any staff establishment by the government, so it's a new ministry. So the whole process has to start again to establish certain staffs in the progression of it, whereby we had to get a director for multi-ethnic, the secretariats, the support staffs, and so forth, which took a bit of time because, as you know, the Public Service Commission doesn't work the way the private sector works. They have to go through certain processes. So we had to request PSC of certain number of staffs. Our objectives were to told to them, and therefore now we have been able to get to just before Christmas. We have now got a staff of 7, right from the director downwards. So we are well geared now to serve the public through this ministry.
Mr. Minister, you are on record as saying that the development of traditions, cultures, religions, languages, and values were hindered by the decentralization of the former Multicultural Affairs Ministry. How are you going to prioritize the commitment to re establishing your ministry?
Well, Sashi, look, we have to get out of the box now to see what other parts of the countries and other part of the world governments been doing in this aspect. Therefore, we've been trying to identify people, the right people who can bring us some policies, some concrete documents based on the experiences and expertise that they have got from either from Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and of course Fiji will be taken into care of. So we have to be a very inclusive study of what multi-ethnic is all about. It's not simply about handing out money and just creating a ministry to save to pay Sarah. Here we need to have a ministry that could be there for permanency. It's not that one government comes, they keep it, the other government throws it away. So my establishment, sorry, my establishment about the whole multi thing is to create something very permanent in the long term. That whether we be there as government or as there as minister should not hinder the fact that a multi-ethnic community, multi-ethnic ministry has to do its job regardless.
Now, there has been some criticism Pardon me. There has been some criticism, Mr. Minister, that you have engaged two consultants from New Zealand. Firstly, who are these two consultants and what are their backgrounds? And I have some follow up questions on that as well. So, who are these two consultants and what are their backgrounds?
Look, Sashi, um, we, as you know, the government's position is such that we want to engage the diasporas who are currently overseas. They want to serve the country, and these two gentlemen, when the ministry was formed and announced about, they came forward to me and they said, Minister, if you are interested, we've got some expertise, we've got some ideas, that we've got some experience in life that we can assist you. So that's how it happened. And if there was any other gentleman or person that would have also given or volunteered to do the services, I would have engaged them too. But unfortunately, these two gentlemen are the first and are the ones only who are interested to come and assist. And looking at the background, as you know, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, he was a race relation commissioner, several positions he's held in New Zealand government, including being a Labour member of Parliament. So, look, when I checked his background, I thought he was a very useful person with his experience, with the background of Fiji. He can fluently talk Itaukei language, and so is the second member, Radhe Anand, who's also from Fiji. Both actually have contributed a lot to Fiji directly and indirectly. So when they volunteered to be part and parcel of our this study and to set up some platform for the multi-ethnic, I said, I said, open arms. I will come. I'll grab you because we need people like you who's got experience who can assist me to make this happen in this multi-ethnic office.
So, the two gentlemen put up their hands to volunteer their services to your ministry.
Absolutely, Shashi. And I really appreciate, and I'm sure that there's not many people in the world that would like to come and work for free. These guys, these two gentlemen have actually volunteered to work for free for Fiji to put this report and to put this whole documents together for our government.
Now, was there no one from Fiji that could have been part of this team to provide local knowledge and input? It seems that local knowledge has not been factored in. Would I be correct in saying that? How do you respond to that?
No, Sashir, that's not correct.
Mhm.
What's happened is we did invite a lot of locals, and as you know, everybody wants money.
Mhm.
Nobody wants to work for free. And that ministry that we have established has a very little budget for this for now. Whilst we'd like to invite the locals, which we have, and I'll later on elaborate about what has happened here when we had appointed these two gentlemen to come to Fiji, they actually went around the entire country. They've had 50 plus more consultation, right from the Prime Minister downwards, right? So they were commercial, the people from commerce background, they were chiefs, there were several ministers of the government, there were several um, uh, NGOs involved. So they actually went there and consulted them. But what I'm saying, your first question is why didn't I get locals? I'll tell you, no locals are there to work for free. And I
Mhm.
don't have money. The ministry doesn't have that type of money to give to them now. Okay, once the whole process finishes off, we'll then see what we can do for the locals. But for now, I'm more than happy that these two gentlemen from New Zealand volunteered to come and work for free and establish a report for me and produce a report for me.
You've mentioned that they're working for free. In other words, it's not costing the Fijian taxpayer, the Fijian government, any money. So, how did you manage to achieve this? Is it being funded by some outside source, New Zealand, for instance?
Well, Sashi, For them, as a fee,
Mm.
it's like you need to establish a good friendship with people. And I know Dr. Rajendra Prasad from a long time back in New Zealand. I know Radhe. And this friendship gave us a bit of that link for them to come and assist me in my ministry. However, however, because they're not charging any fees for this whole process, we actually were. I felt a bit guilty that look, we cannot ask them even to come at their own airfares and their own hotel accommodation and so forth. So what I did was I actually, through our ministry, approached the New Zealand High Commission, uh, telling them, look, we've got this program and this whole thing has to be done for multi-ethnic. And I'm very pleased that the High Commissioner to New Zealand, she actually agreed. And the High Commission then approached the Wellington um, headquarters of this, and they actually allocated 75,000 New Zealand dollars towards this program, whereby they're traveling in and out of Fiji with accommodations, and of course, the traveling throughout the Fiji to consult people will all be taken care of by the New Zealand government.
That sounds fair enough. It has to be funded somehow or the other. Now, you alluded a little earlier to the Multi Ethnic Affairs Ministry set up by the Ngarise government some years ago. Now, that one was quite famous. And then there was another one I thought where they were giving out boats and engines and forks and spades. Is this going to be another donation type of a ministry, or are you looking at establishing your ministry in some other way?
No, Sashi, look, that I don't think you're right there that the last multi-ethnic affairs were giving boats and engines. They're actually giving scholarships,
All right.
scholarships. And in our ministry, we don't actually have any funding for scholarships because this government's policy is that all scholarship has to be directed through the Ministry for Education. However, the good news, the good news that I have for people of Fiji, as I recently met, as Nikhil has mentioned, this Joint Secretariat person from India, also the Indian High Commissioner. They have actually got a scholarship of 100 people they can sponsor annually through a program called ITEC. ITEC is the program, scholarship program. They give scholarships for everything except medicine.
Okay.
So they came in matters and they said, look, ministry, there is a lot of scholarship. Unfortunately, I'll tell you one thing. What had happened in the last 16 years, the Pennymarama government never used all the scholarships. Fiji actually has 100 scholarships in the quota. And unfortunately, they didn't use it, so the quota fell. The
Mhm.
quota fell. Now, because we have shown interest, our quota has been brought back to 100. So what my ministry is going to facilitate is we will advertise that there's a scholarship for ITEC from ITEC. Either it could be an individual scholarship, you can do a 3 to 5 year program, or you can do a mixed program with a specialized uh, program of 3 months, 10 months, or whatever. So from January, we will advertise in the papers for anyone who's interested to go to India to study and enhance their education, and we will facilitate them.
That's something absolutely fantastic for the people of Fiji. 100 scholarships a year will go a long way to educating a cross section of our community. Now, Mr. Minister, the Fiji Bureau of Statistics 2017 Population and Housing Census report suggested that the minority groups made up about 37% of Fiji's population. Now, that number over the last 6 years since that report was published would be much lower now. Who are these minority groups and how will they benefit from your ministry?
Well, Sashi, as you know that you're correctly saying because that stats were 5 years back. Today, our minority stands at about 32%. 68% is the case.
Mhm.
However, we are still, the minorities are still part of the Fiji citizenship program. They're still part and parcel of us. That includes, as I said earlier, is the Rotumans, the Banabans, the Chinese, the Kioans, the Solomon Islanders, and us as Indians. We still have a duty bound. We are still duty bound as a government to take care of the minorities. And I, as a minister, will make sure that these minorities are looked after, they're given adequate budget in the multi-ethnic, and wherever needfully they to be assisted, we will try to assist them. And I will not hesitate to emphasize in cabinet or otherwise that I'm not there to waste my time as a minister. I need to look after them. I need to have given adequate budget to look after them. And I'll tell you, the Honorable Professor Biman, the Minister of Finance, has assured me that multi-ethnic will be given adequate budget in the next budget session, that we can look after them. And I'll tell you, one of the programs that we want to do, Sashi, this is a lot of minorities don't have land. They don't have proper leases. We actually want to facilitate them through this multi-ethnic to give them some funding so that they can go and get proper leases for their land and their communities.
All right, wonderful. And the Minister for Finance is watching this program,
Is it?
so your your comments for a budget, I'm sure Professor Biman Prasad has taken note of that as well. Now, you've stated recently that the framework to better serve the multi-ethnic community is being compiled. When do you expect this to be completed, and when do you present this to Cabinet or the Parliament?
Sashi, well, only last night I met Dr. Rajendra Prasad and Radhe as well at a function, and we had a very quick meeting. Their first set of consultations which they have done, now they're compiling a report for me, and hopefully in the late January or early February they are coming back to Fiji, and they'll hand me a preliminary report, but then they'll go around the country again, showing people what they have actually done in terms of the report. And if they want people to fine tune that, if there has been anything missed out. So, all in all, when they come and give the second report and second set of consultation, which they're going to do with everybody, I hope that we will get the final report by end of March or early April. And then that's what I'll take it to cabinet.
All right. And when do you expect a budget handout to your ministry? In the next budget session?
Well, I'm as you said that Biman is watching. I'll warn him now. If he doesn't give it to me, then he gets into trouble.
All right. Well, let's have a break, Mr. Minister. We'll come back to you and we'll discuss the sugar industry. That's the second portfolio under your ministerial hat.
Thank
Have
you.
a break and I'll come back to you in a moment. You
Thanks.
are watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point, and our chief guest today is the Honorable Minister for Multi-Ethnic Affairs and the Sugar Industry, Charan Jeath Singh. Please like and follow the SSTP page, and if you can, please share the page as well. Now, some of you are sending questions. I'm not going to take questions on the run. If you listen to the program, I believe some of your questions will definitely be answered because that's how I've planned this program. Minister Charan Jeath Singh, welcome back on SSTP. Let me now raise some very serious matters for discussion with regards to your other portfolio, that being the sugar industry. Sometimes I think that the sugar industry is perhaps the portfolio of death because of the dire straits the industry finds itself in. When I look at the state of the sugar industry, there is an obvious decline in all the key areas of the industry. Let me give you an example. For instance, there has been a crop decline of 4.4 million tons in 1996 to 1.56 million tons in 2023. That is a production reduction of nearly 2/3. Similarly, in 2023, the sugar industry recorded sugar production output from 502,000 tons in 1986 to just 140,000 tons in 2023. That is a decline in sugar production of 72%. So, my first question to you on the sugar industry is whether saving the sugar industry is a viable proposition, or are we just wasting time and money?
Sashi, before I start to answer to your question, there is in Indian there's a kahawat,
Mm.
right आदमी अगर वहां पे जगह पे रहे उसके हाथ अच्छा है तो वहां पे लक्ष्मी आई.
Okay.
I translate to say if you're the right person in the right place with the right mind and honesty, then the money will come in the system.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, in the last 18 years, we had the wrong people in the wrong place. And that's why the decline of the industry has happened. Now, to answer your question, yes, this industry has to stay. We've got 200,000 people directly and indirectly attached to this industry. We cannot let it die. And if you really see what has happened, Sashi, when COVID struck the entire world, and of course it affected Fiji as well. And as much as we boast about the tourism industry, the tourism is now has bounced back and so forth. But what kept us going? We had two forms of income only came into the country. One was remittances, and one was the sugar industry proceeds. So, as a minister of sugar, I'm very hopeful, provided I put the right programs in place. And this is where your first question came whether the Prime Minister has confidence in me. I have full confidence in the government of the day, with the cabinet who are backing me up, and myself with the programs I'm putting in place. And I'm encouraging farmers day and night that let's come back on farm. And I'll elaborate to that further.
So what was the state of the sugar industry when you took over as the minister?
Well, I'll tell you one. When we said that at 4.2 million we were running, today we are crawling, and that's the irony of it now that I have taken a big task to revitalize our industry, and it'll happen. It'll happen. I'll tell you why. Because with my experience of traveling other parts of the sugar countries that I've been to, they also had similar problems. But when the policies are set right by the government, and when you talk to the farmers and bring them with some modern technologies, it'll happen. And believe me, I'll make it happen. Oh, if I don't make it happen, then I will voluntarily move out of the industry. But give me this 3 years to go, and you'll see the results.
I'll come back to you about your travels and about what research you've done and how you intend to bring those strategic changes. I'll ask you about those in a moment.
Mhm.
But, Mr. Minister, figures do not lie as they provide an accurate, quantifiable data. I have it on record that the average production from 1970 to 2010 was 3.2 million tons per season, whereas the average production from 2011 to 2023 was just 1.68 million tons per year. Now, this is just about 50% less yield. What do you attribute these shocking figures for the average production?
Well, Sashi, you're correct. You're correct in that. In fact, as I said, the best production we had 4.2 million tons in a good time, and we produced 503,000 tons of sugar. Our supply, before I could come to your answer, we used to have a preferential supply of sugar to EU and ACP countries. Now, and we were getting a good price. We had surplus of sugar despite selling to them. We had surplus of sugar that we sold to Korea, to Japan, to US, and so forth. Now, that was a bumper time of the current industry. And I was so thankful to the Prime Minister of the day, Ratu Sekamara, that they had a vision and a mission to make the industry very fruitful. However, let's come back to 2006. We still actually came to about 3.2 million tons of cane in 2006. And the whole production declined to 1.5 million tons. What actually has happened now, I'll tell you what has happened. The industry was totally neglected by the government. You can't see, the saying is, you can take a horse to a river, but you can't ask him to drink the water. So what has happened, even if you give money, to the industry, but if you do not give them the support and the backup and the system, which was all breaking off and breaking down, then the farmers were still very much confused whether we should be in the industry or we should not be in the industry. And one of the factors, which actually perhaps you may want me to elaborate later, was of the land issues. So the farmers got very upset about when the land issues were not resolved. So they were unsure whether they can stay on the farm or they cannot stay on the farm. So these all things combinedly gave a lot of reasons for the industry to come down. And of course, as you probably also hear from me, as we have got aging farmers, and we have small children who are educated, they've got degrees now, they are moving out of the farm. And also, we have labor shortage on the farms now. So I will elaborate on that further. Thanks.
All right, we'll talk about labor shortage soon. Now, 40% of our sugarcane growers produce less than even 40 tons per hectare, when the rest of the world produces about 80% yield per hectare. That means our production in Fiji is close to half the world average. This is a good time to ask you, what sort of incentives are you providing to the farmers to increase production?
Sashi, I'll just my recent trip to Thailand, and of course, I'll tell you, I've been to Mauritius, I've been to Eswatini, which is normally known as Swaziland. I was in few of the countries where they produce sugar. Their sugar they produce is 120 tons per hectare, not 100. I also went to Hyderabad in India. So what has happened? And this is what I've been talking to the FSC executives and the directors, and of course the Growers Council, that why has our production come down? First of all, the ratoon crops, which we should turn over every 3 years, is not done. The variety of crops that is supposed to be approved, some farmers are cheating us and they're not putting the right variety. Number 3 is we actually have to now bring in mechanization so that the per hectare, which currently Fiji averages about 47 tons, we have to bring it up to about 95 to 100 tons. So these are things that with the incentive that our last budget that we have approved, we have got 13 different type of incentive, which never in the history of any government had given us. And if you permit me to let you know, what are these incentives?
Please go ahead, please.
The first one, Sashi, is the Sugar Stabilization Fund. We have given $1 million in that budget. Now, which means that should the price would have come anything under $85 a ton after selling our sugar and the proceeds come to us, we would have then topped up by $1 million. But lucky enough, government didn't have to provide any extra dollars. And this 1 million that we had in our allocation, we have shifted it towards that $5 payment, and which actually takes care of the budget. Then the second part of this program was this road access, cane access roads. Unfortunately, every farmer that I've spoken to during our consultation, as I became the minister, I did almost about 75 consultations straight away, right from Reki Reki to Singatoka, right from Senganga to Langa Langa. And the problem was cane access road. Now, when farmers are ready to harvest, they want to go and start transporting their cane, the roads are not in the right condition. And even if the cane access roads are maintained or given the contractors a contract to go and fix the road, they do not fix the road in the right manner. It's substandard. They use substandard materials, and by the time a rain comes, it washes away the road. So what we've done, we have allocated $2 million for the cane access road, and I have made sure I have told FSC, I've told the sugar industry officials that they should not put river gravel, they have to put crushed metal. And we will check it out. And I've told every farmer committee, every farm community members, do not sign the voucher for release of payment until you are satisfied, not only personally, but there should be three farmers for the same road to approve that this quality of road, or the standard of the road is up to date before we can give out that money. So that's 2 million has been allocated to that. Number three, as you know, Sashi, since the Penang mill has closed, FSC or the government has a duty to subsidize the farmers with the transportation of cane from Reki and Tabu up to bar mill. So here the government has allocated $5 million to subsidize the transportation of cane. Now, this thing has been happening for the last 5 years. Now, this is where I'm going to come back to Penang mill and let you know more.
I'll
If we
be
are-
talking. Sorry, Mr. Minister.
So I
I'll
will-
be discussing Penang Mill.
and then I'll leave
separately.
that.
Yeah.
I'll go back to the next one. Sugar cane development assistance. We are allocating farmers to produce extra cane. We are giving them $3,000 per hectare. That promotes them to, which previously was not given in the last budget or previous budgets. So the farmers are being given that enticement to go ahead and increase their production. The fourth one is, of course, that cane development assistance is $5 million. And again, coming back to the Sashi, I'm very, very careful about it. A lot of farmers in the previous years, they used to have friends in FSC, friends in the Ministry of Sugar. They will draw money, but they will not plant cane. So this time around, we are monitoring it very carefully. There's 3 stages of paying out the payment to every farmer. First, you land preparation, then you plant your cane. In 3 weeks' time, when the germination is done or whatever, then they come and certify, then the payment is done. So there's no free lunch anymore from that program. Fourthly, we have cage bins. As you know, the tram lines in Fiji, we have the small rail cars, which carries only about 2 tons or 3 tons, and oftenly those cars fall off the railway system. So now FSC has introduced cage bins, which is an enclosed bin, and it carries more cane per bin. And we've given another $1 million for the program. The other one is the subsidy on weedicide. We've allowed $1 million for that. Previously, the farmers were paying 80% for the weedicide, and government was giving 20%. With this grant, the farmers will pay 70%, and government will give 30%. So there's another additional incentive there. Fertilizers.
How many more incentives do you have?
Another 4, 5. Look, let me finish it off, because why I'm saying it's very important what we are giving. Farmers incentive, fertilizer subsidy, $20 million. Now, $20 million at the moment, farmers are charged only $20 a bag for fertilizer, whereas it's costing government $85 per bag. So government is giving $65 from their side to the farmers to assist them out. And farmers incentive, there's $1 million to that, which means if a farmer currently produces 100 tons of cane, and if he works hard and produces another 100 tons more, which is another 200, totally it becomes 200. So we'll give them $5 extra per ton on the additional that he's produced in the year, apart from his normal whatever he gets in terms of his cane payment. And of course, for the lease, which is very important, we have actually allowed or given a program where if a farmer gets a lease, a new lease, the Matangali wants his premium, we will give farmers 7,500 S contribution or 30%, which is lower. Now that's a big incentive because what happens, for example, if a farmer gets charged $20,000 for premium, so 7,500 government gives, and the balance is for the farmer to pay in a 5-year period. So that's the arrangement we made with TLTB. And of course, farm mechanization, we are trying to bring in new machines, planters, fertilizer applicators, and so forth. There's 500,000 allowed for that, and we will provide those machineries to the farmers. And manual labor, if a farmer is harvesting manually, we are giving $1 per ton extra to the farmer so that he can be assisted in paying for the manual labor. And small individual farmers, a lot of farmers have been complaining about the cattle have been destroying their cane farms. There's no culverts and so forth. So there's 500,000 allocated for that. For farmers want assistance, we'll provide. And finally, infill drainage. That was the biggest problem the farmers were telling us, that the farms are waterlogged with salt water. There's no drainage. There's no waters being flowing out. So there is a big $5 million we've allocated for that. I'm telling you, Sashi, we are monitoring every machine operators, and farmers are pretty happy to say that we are moving well in the program.
You've spoken about a good list of incentives. Has your ministry actually publicized those? Do the farmers know that these incentives exist?
Yes, Sashi, look, once the budget was announced, we actually got all the sector officers, FSC sector officers, their farm advisors, the field officers went around telling the farmers what incentives we have. And of course, there was some publicity as well through our ministry. So now a lot of farmers, basically, I think majority of the farmers know what we are providing them.
You mentioned labor. Correct me if I'm wrong. I understand that active growers of sugarcane in Fiji today is down from 22,000 in the good old days to just about 11,000 these days. How has this impacted the sugar industry?
Well, before I answer that question, the sugar industry in those days, when our old parents were there, they used to have 11, 12 children per family. And they all used to contribute working on the farm. Today we are with minimum of 1 or 2 child per family. So that perhaps answers your first question, that should the trend would have continued, we would still had that type of numbers. However, since the numbers has dropped from 22 to 11, I don't blame why the numbers have dropped, because as I said, that the young generation are not interested to work on the farm. It's too labor intensive for them. Number two, a lot of them have migrated to Australia and New Zealand, and they've left their parents to be on the farm. So the farmers, when they employ workers in the farm, it costs them $25 per labor per day. Now, which not many can afford. And with an average farm with 100-ton cane, there's no viability to keep a $25 per day farmer worker. But look, again, the whole situation is not only in Fiji. We've been talking to people in Mauritius, in all other countries, for that matter. They have labor shortage, but they move forward. They move forward to have better production within the farm using mechanization. So we have to also look at them and learn from them.
All right, now, still on that labor shortage, do you not think that while you are, on the one hand, trying to increase production and yield, and on the other hand, there is or will be massive shortage of labor in the sugar industry. So, how do you address the impending labor shortage in the sugar industry? Will you get
Well,
workers from outside of Fiji, or what do you have in mind?
well, there is a talk. There's talk about bringing in workers from overseas and outside. And as you know, there was a program in the previous years to bring in laborers from Vanuatu. Vanuatu laborers came in. They worked on the farm. They harvested cane, and of course, we have prisoners who actually harvest cane as well. Recently, my meetings with the farmers was that can we bring in laborers from overseas, and which we currently talking to the Ministry for Immigration, to Honorable Priyoti Kundua. The biggest obstacle now is, see, if you are bringing in an expatriate worker, whether it's a laborer or it's a professional, you have to pay a 3,500 bond per person.
Hmm.
And ordinary farmer may not be able to afford the 3,500 bond. And of course, you have to bring in, you have to pay their airfares both ways and so forth. So recently in the cabinet, I have actually discussed with the Prime Minister and the Honorable PO and the other cabinet ministers. They are coming to some terms to say, look, okay, if it's gonna be laborers and workers on farms, we can give them a different category and different type of bond fee. So if that is reduced, and my proposal to them is that let's put $100 as a bond, and of course get the person who's getting them into the country to sign a guarantee. To sign a guarantee. If they do not fulfill the requirements or there's any issues with the worker, then this person who's bringing him in, he has to fully pay his funding to go back. So these things have now currently been talked about, and Honorable Piyoti Kundua, who's actually was on a tour to Reki Reki, he told me that the cane farmers there are very, very into a situation where there's no laborers. So he said, now, Charan, I'm more than happy to talk this the way that you want to bring in the workers. So, yes, we're talking on that line. But let me first get that solved out that the bond issue has to be agreed by the immigration, that for professionals and others, they can charge 3.5, but for the normal workers, we have to reduce that bond rate.
All right, so there is a labor shortage, and that is why you're considering people from overseas as well. So
Well,
that is the fact of life.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Sashi, our people, even the professionals in Fiji, they're leaving Fiji to go and do fruit picking in Australia and New Zealand in big numbers. And we've lost, as I speak to you, we've lost 140 skilled workers in FSC in the last 1 year. And in the last 3 months, we've lost another 80.
Wow.
So
Those are big numbers when you look at just one industry, and that's the Fiji sugar industry.
that's right.
Let me move on, Mr. Minister. Um, in the 60s to mid 70s, when I grew up in Lautoka, I often wondered why farmers burnt their cane. I understand that these days there is nearly 55% of burned cane. Firstly, you're a farmer, you'll be able to answer this for me. Why do farmers burn the cane? And secondly, what is the quality of the burned cane then?
Well, just my recent trip to Thailand, I'll tell you, the government of Thailand has given a massive incentive to the farmers not to burn cane. Right. So that answers my first question to why people are burning cane in Fiji. It's all about there's two issues there. One is a deliberate by farmer to burn cane so that the harvesters, a mechanical harvest can come in and cut cane and harvest cane easily, because there's a lot of treasures and there's a lot of grasses in there, which gives a problem to the harvester. And number two is we have this, as usual, the jealousy of farmers or the neighboring farmers. If they don't like you, they'll light fire. So as much as some farmers or majority of farmers don't want to burn cane, the harvester operators are culprits. They try to tell them, burn your cane, then we'll come and cut your cane. So we actually, in the whole program, And the whole program is one of the incentives we're putting now is that if you provide green cane, we'll give you another $5 extra per ton. So this is from next year.
And then obviously, therefore, burned cane would have reduced quality, obviously.
Definitely, yes. No, that's definitely, if you burn cane and if it's not delivered to the mill on time, you lose that sucrose and you lose sugar contents. So FSC really then crushes your cane just like a stick.
All right, let me explore things a bit further with you, Mr. Minister, and see what you have inherited in the sugar industry portfolio. Let us begin from the Mbani Marama led coup of 2006. I'm turning the clock back a little bit here. How was the sugar industry immediately impacted after the coup of 2006?
Sashi, I'll just put some figures from 2006 to 2023. Now, the profit of the sugar industry depleted very badly. With the exception of a few years that FSC made profits of $2-3 million, we actually, Fiji Sugar Corporation stands at $545 million in loss in the last 18 years. So that's the loss that FSC has gone through. Number two, the shareholding equity of FSC, we actually had a positive in 2006 of $176 million. Today, in the last 18 years, we are sitting on $553 million negative in shareholding equity. Most of the accountants would know what I'm talking about. So that type of radical administration of the government has brought this to this level of where FSC stands. And of course, the liabilities of the FSC today stands at about $547 million, in which we have this Exim Bank loan of 75 million, which I'll elaborate further. But look at it, the industry has come to that stage where this government, I don't know what they were doing. They should have actually seen every year's progress and meted out what's right and what's wrong. But unfortunately, as you said, I've inherited these figures and I have to turn it around.
You've no doubt inherited figures, and most of them now in the negative. But after the coup of 2006, there was the dismantling, for example, of the Sugar Industry Act of 1984. There was the abolition of the Sugarcane Growers Council. Surely this all would have had negative impact on the farming industry.
Well, that's it. As you know, Sashi, when the Growers Council was first established, they had 111 Growers Councilors representative in the whole board. And some people joked about it that the parliament had only 70 or so 52 members and Growers Council had 111. And this is where one of our friends was Shri Ramu, former member of parliament. He kept on joking. He said, "Look, we are only 52 and Growers Council is 111." So obviously, that was the first when it got established. But then later on, they dropped the numbers to 38, which is one per sector, which was reasonable. But coming back to the dismantling of the Growers Council was a wrong decision because the farmers' voice were actually taken off from the entire system of the sugar industry. And it was very vital to keep the voice of the sugar farmers to know what the problems are on the field up to the headquarters of FSC. And of course, we also got that dismantle with the Sugar Commission and the sugar marketing. And this is where I'll come back and you have to ask me about what has happened in sugar marketing and how we failed to get the best price of sugar because of the negligence of this last government.
Well, why don't you answer that right now?
Okay, so when I was in on my trip to Mauritius, we met this Sugar Marketing Authority of Mauritius. The Sugar Marketing Authority actually sits and tries to establish the best prices and the best guaranteed prices they can get for the sugar of the country. Because we had dismantled sugar marketing, FSC FSC became itself a sugar marketer. They had no idea. They put some people on the board of FSC that believed to be the good sugar marketing people, but I'll tell you what has happened. We went to a problem in FSC. FSC started using a company called Zanikau in UK. Now Zanikau buys our sugar and resells our sugar to Titan Lyle or any other companies throughout the world. They had an upper hand. What they did, they used to buy our sugar, which is still not harvested, actually it's on the farm. They dictated the price. They tell us, look, you'll have to we'll only give you so much. That's it, whether you like it or not. Now, how can I sell something which is still I'm not even sure of? Now, here if a cyclone comes in Fiji and destroys our crops, and here I've already borrowed money, and of course when I borrowed money, they're not our friends, they're not our relatives, they do business. So here our situation had come that we were pre-selling our sugar, which was still not harvested, which was still not processed, and we were losing money in a big way.
All right. Sugarcane Growers Council, is that going to be restructured? Are you going to bring the growers' representatives back in place? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, Sashi, well, I've already presented a paper to the cabinet. The cabinet has endorsed it. We are going through some processes because now, as you know, that elections happens through the election supervisor's office. We are now still, although currently we only got 8 gross councillors, reps under the present structure. So we're still trying to figure out how many members we should bring in back. But the gross council election will happen. It's a matter of the cost because each gross councillor has to be paid an allowance. And currently, the sugar industry takes care of 100% levy or the funding of the gross council. But yes, I've already discussed. The cabinet has endorsed, as I said. I have to just tour around the country again to just discuss with the farmers as to what the right number of reps we should have. I may have 38, I may have 25, all depends on based on the area and the size of the current production. And of course, we can keep increasing the numbers as our production of cane increases.
Mr. Minister, have a break, have a sip of water. We'll come back to you to discuss the closure of the Penang mill and its effect. I also want to discuss with you the role of Abdul Khan and what effect that had on the sugar industry, and whether you believe some people ought to be taken to task, and much, much more. I have quite a lot to discuss with you, so please hang around. Have a drink of water, have a little
Thank,
break.
thank you.
You are watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point, and our chief guest today is the Honorable Minister for Multi-Ethnic Affairs and Sugar Industry, Mr. Charan Jeath Singh. Please like and follow the SSTP page, and if you can, please share the page as well. And I will also be asking some viewer questions submitted by our viewers prior to Friday. Well, Mr. Singh, I'm back with you, and this time I'd like to address the diabolical situation of the Penang Mill saga. Let us now speak about the plight of the people of Raki Raki and Tavua. It seems to me that these people have been very hard done by and perhaps forgotten by the previous government. Now, after Cyclone Winston in January of 2016, the Penang mill was badly damaged and that it had to be shut down. In May 2017, former Prime Minister Voringam Bainimarama announced that the Penang mill was damaged so badly that repairing it would cost millions and millions of dollars. Even if an attempt was made to repair the Penang mill, most of the structure was said to be outdated, and trying to locate replacement parts would be difficult, which conclusively led to the fact that a new mill was going to be a better option. Mr. Mbani Marama told the people of Raki Raki in May 2017 that FSC's chief executive, Graham Clark, and his team were looking into options. In fact, Mr. Clark is reported later telling farmers that a feasibility study would be done on the construction of the new mill, taking into consideration it would be built at a new location that would be economical for them. Minister Singh, what I have just stated was said in May 2017, more than 6 years ago. When you took office, did you come across any feasibility study reports, any viability reports on the relocation and construction of a brand new mill in Penang?
Sashi, there's no feasibility study, there's no reports whatsoever, and it's just a hearsay of Benny Marama and Graham Clark. To my knowledge, and first of all, Benny Marama is not in the industry proper itself. He, as a sugar minister, I don't think he was serious about running the industry. My understanding of the cyclone damage was no more than $5 million, because this is what the industry executives are telling me. We actually had received, the government has received $7 million in insurance claim for the damage. They could have easily repaired that mill. There were only few problems that was to be resolved, and the mill would have been in operation. But I don't know who gave this grand idea to the government to dismantle the mill altogether. And in fact, if you know that one of the big cane farmers in Reki Reki, George Shiraj, he himself kept on saying that, look, if the mill was there, we would have put 7 million to do it. And I'll tell you one thing, because I've seen the other mills, and 7 to 10 million, even 10 million for that matter, it would be much cheaper than today investing as you speak. My quotation to get a new mill done, a brand new mill done today, will be between 80 to $100 million US. So putting 10 million would have been just easier and get the mill going.
I mean, that is devastating news when you look at the area of Ra and Tavua. Do you have any facts or figures in relation to what impact it caused to the people in that area by the closure of the Penang mill?
Well, as you know, the entire Reki Reki and Tavua, between them, the economy is centered around sugar industry. And when there's no mill, there is no sugar industry. However, the farmers have continued to grow cane there. And of course, as I said earlier, at a cost of $6 million or $5 million to the government, we would transport the cane. But here, the impact was even the workers of the mill. They have been basically they've displaced themselves. And now to incentivize and to bring farmers back on the land, there has to be some solid plans and programs in place. And my visiting the farms and the Reki farmers, they're all geared to come back. They're all geared to plant cane again. And most of these landowners who own big farms and hectares of land, they're willing to come back and give land leases to the farmers. So look, what I'm saying is that the decision that Benny Marama government made was very unprofessional. It wasn't for the benefit of the country, and now putting things back, and as our government has promised, the mill will be definitely be constructed again. But we're currently doing some feasibility study at what size of mill, and once we establish the entire tonnage, we can reproduce back in Reki Reki, which should be higher than what they used to be in the previous days. And of course, for that, I'll come back and I'll tell you why we need more tonnage out of Reki Reki.
So you've just said it was unprofessional. So do you think it was an irresponsible undertaking provided by the previous government under the leadership of Mr. Mbani Marama?
Absolutely, Sashi. Look, I'll tell you what, no responsible Prime Minister and Minister of Sugar would have taken that our decision. Here, we're trying to bring the industry into a top level competing with the other sugar producing countries. And that, as I said, is our bread and butter. That was the bread and butter for our farmers. And he just with just like that, he just closed the mill. And not only that, when he closed the mill, they made the entire mill a scrap. And with no disclosure of how much the government earned, a Korean company came into the entire mill, all the metals. When I visited the mill site, there's nothing left there.
Wow. You mean it's all gone to scrap metal?
Absolutely, by a Korean company, and I'll be interested to know how much government got from that scraps.
Well, you're
I,
in the
I
best.
I was surprised. When I first visited the mill site, I thought still these machines are there, boilers are there, everything is there, and I can perhaps use my bit of knowledge and my team to get it going again. But nothing is there, zero.
I mean, you're a government minister. Why haven't you been able to find out what happened, how much they got for it?
Well, obviously, as I said, I'm gonna eventually find out. There's no issue about that. But as I said, now there's nothing there. I'm more interested to see what I can do quickly for the. But I'm definitely gonna get this figure, and in the next program I will reveal.
All right, now something's bugging me here. Did you ever find out what happened to the insurance money for that mill after Cyclone Winston disaster? I mean, normally you'd expect an insurance payout to bring the mill back to an efficient enough stage to, start production again. What happened to the insurance money? Do you know?
I think, Shashi, if I'm not wrong, that money did not come to FSC as per se. It went to the consolidated funds of the government, and then it disappeared from there.
Sorry, it went into the funds of government.
The consolidated funds of the
Okay.
government's treasury. Yes.
All right. Well, do you have plans for the Reki Reki mill or the people of Ryan Tavua areas doomed so far, insofar as the sugar industry is concerned? Is there any message of hope for those people?
Yes, Sashi, look, I've been mandated by the Prime Minister and the Cabinet that the Reki mill has to be re-established. What currently we're working on is to see the crop size that's going to come out of the current farms and the new farms that we will promote. And once we establish those figures, then we will have a right size of mill put there. And currently, we've been talking to several suppliers in India, in Thailand, and other parts of the world to see how they can assist us into putting a new mill there.
And do you think, Mr. Minister, that privatization might work in terms of mill if it went to a private entity to be run as a commercial venture?
Well, that is an option open to us, Sashi, because as you know, that currently in the last year, before the last AGM, FSC was partially owned by some small shareholders as well. So we actually have basically the government has taken over the entire industry as 100% government owned now, and now that gives us a time and chance to now talk to other private shareholders private investors who can come in. And currently, we are talking to three uh, large companies who own sugar mills in Australia, in Thailand, in India, and in Philippines, who are interested to come in partnership and come on board. So I will not disclose the names now because it's a bit very raw stage, but that's the way we're gonna go now because we need to have big brothers to come and help the small brothers here, and they are in a big way in sugar industry, and they'll help us in funding, they'll help us in the running of the mills, and they'll bring in expertise as well.
All right. Let me now turn my attention to perhaps. Let me now turn my attention to perhaps the first of two huge disasters in the sugar industry. The first disaster that I want to discuss is the mill upgrade program. In September this year, You released under your name a press statement that I understand was published in the Fiji Times. To me, it makes for shocking reading. Can I please ask you at this stage to provide a brief background to the mill upgrade disaster? I have a number of questions with facts and figures,
Mhm.
so don't tell me about the loan amount. I'm going to ask you that separately. But just briefly, what's the background to the mill upgrade disaster?
Sashi, well, as you know, our all the mills were very old. They were about 100 years old. They needed upgrading in certain parts of the mills, from the boilers to the rollers to the carriers and so forth. So there was an assessment done. There was an assessment done for these mills to be upgraded: Lambasa, Rarawai, Penang, and Latoka. In that, there was some form of government request um, done by then the Garase. I think it started from Chaudhry's government and then it went to Garase's government. And India government came forward to
Mhm.
assist in the upgrading. And that's how the upgrading talk started. But I'll elaborate further. That's the
All
question.
right. Now, I believe you mentioned earlier on, and I stand to be corrected, that there's something like $550 million which has accumulated as losses in relation to the seriously mismanaged investment that has taken place. Would that be correct?
That's correct, Sashi, because as you know that whilst we had borrowed money, Indian government had given us funding through the Exim Bank. The mismanagement, the losses that incurred by FSC has come to the figure that you mentioned. And unfortunately, this money we still owe in big terms to the Indian government, and nothing constructive was done in the mill to upgrade them. And one of the reasons was that we have a condition by the Exim Bank of India and of course the Indian government that all materials, all equipments, all manpower has to come out of India for the upgrade of
Mm.
the mill. And what happened, whilst there was honesty on the part of the Indian government, there were some so-called consultants who became a second party and third party in the whole upgrading. And I will not hesitate to name one person called J. Bhagat. He formed a company within the company, and he had the open checkbook how to use the $75 million Exim funds funding. So they brought in equipments, they brought in substandard materials, and nothing has been used, and everything is lying like a scrap metal in all the mills.
What is the debt? What is the FSC debt owed to the Exim Bank today?
As of now, it's $75 million, $75 million Fijian.
Oh my God. Um, I also believe that FSC has paid nearly $24 million in interest alone on the Exim loan, and that it keeps increasing to about $4 million each year. It seems that every aspect of this deal was a colossal disaster. Do you know how did this happen, under whose watch?
Well, obviously, the mismanagement and the former directors of the mill, the former board, I would put a sole blame on them because they should have advised the government as what was happening in terms of this loan. So now that we have actually come to a stage that we have to take responsibility as a government of this loan, we actually been trying to talk to the some government ministers that I spoke to on a direct basis, and one was the external minister for India, Jay Shankar. He was in Fiji. I spoke to him. I spoke to the Indian High Commissioner. I've spoken to the last delegation that have come. That if they can somehow do a waiver on this loan because it has never been a successful program that they have, although they had good intentions as an Indian government, but it has never eventuated because of the parties involved in the dishonesty of the program. However, the Indian government's position is very clear. They said, look, we've given a lot of funding to other countries through Exim Bank, and we do not want to set up precedents whereby if we do a, because my request was to turn this loan into a grant and let's just clear the books. So they said, look, we can't do that because if we do a waiver to you, to your loan, there's a lot of African countries that they have also funded. So what they actually have promised to us, and they've actually agreed that they can do a waiver of interest from wherever we have our loans are, but we still have to pay the principal.
All right. And I think you just mentioned millions of dollars of hardware and equipment lying just idle. Is it true that these equipment will never be used and it's just been a waste of money?
Absolutely, Sashi. Look, on my last tour to all the mills, and I really am so worried about what and how the previous administrators of the mills had gone through. The original metals that were put in by the CSR are still very intact.
Mhm.
In the previous mills, and of course, as you rightfully say about Lotoka mill that perhaps been visited a lot. I visited all the mills. The current status of the metals and the parts and the machineries that Indian suppliers gave are rusting and is all basically in order to be used. So it's just, as I said, it's 110% basically a waste of all this funding that we've gone through.
It seems that someone high up allowed the people from India to come and have total control, to totally hijack the entire industry, so to say. What would you like to say to Mbani Marama and Kayum regarding the Exim loan saga?
Well, Sashi, again, as I said, they should have, as a minister for sugar, Qayyum as a minister for finance, they knew what was the system and what went wrong in the industry. They should have nipped on the bud straight away to say, look, enough of bidding has gone through. We should now correct it. But they seem to be very ignorant and ignored the entire thing and left it to some favorite boys of this to handle the industry.
Yes, I'm
And
coming to that favorite boy. I'm going to discuss him right away in just a moment. I'm sorry to steal your thunder,
okay,
but so the sad part is we still owe $75 million, and the interest payments are roughly $4 million a year on that.
correct, correct, Sashi.
Wow. Well, look, have a sip of water, have a little break. I'll come back to you in a moment.
Thank you.
And when I come back, I want to discuss another dark side of the FSC saga, that about the role of Abdul Khan and what effect this has had in the industry. And that will be quite interesting, I'm sure. You are watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point, and our chief guest today is Mr. Charan Jeath Singh, the Minister for Multi-Ethnic Affairs and the Sugar Industry. Please like and follow the SSTP page, and if you can, please share the page as well. I will be asking some viewer questions later on in the program. Mr. Minister, let us now address the Abdul Khan saga. Where do I begin? Viewers on SSTP, please let me set up a brief timeline of events very quickly and get the minister's reaction, comments, and feedback on the matters raised. The infamous Abdul Khan was appointed as director in October 2009 by the Mbani Marama government, then elevated to CEO, and then to executive chairman of the FSC board on 1 January 2011, a position he retained for nearly 6 years until his abrupt resignation on 19th October 2016 due to reported ill health. He headed FSC for 7 of the last 12 years, and in his capacity as CEO, reported to himself as executive chairman. Mr. Minister, would you agree that the appointment of Abdul Khan was perhaps the most farcical government appointment without any external accountabilities and reporting. I mean, the man reported to himself. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, obviously, it came to a situation where it was a job for the boys, and Abdul Khan, through what I've been told, was one of the supporters and financiers of the Fiji government, and he actually then, of course, was giving donation to Fiji government in a smaller way, but benefited in a bigger way through his company called Jinx, and of course him becoming the executive chairman, uh, claiming millions of dollars directly and indirectly, which I'll elaborate further.
Now, I have looked at the figures as reported in the FSC annual reports and have ascertained that for the 7-year period, 2009 to 2016, when Abdul Khan was on the FSC board, 5 of which he was the CEO and executive chairman, FSC recorded cumulative losses of nearly $340 million. $340 million. This was the largest in FSC's 52-year history for a comparable 7-year period. What do you think happened between 2009 to 2016? What do you think the then Minister for Shugambani Marama was doing? Do you think he was asleep on the job?
Well, firstly, I would say reading a balance sheet by Benny Marama is not possible. He doesn't even know how to write a check from his own account. So giving him a complex balance sheet is I think something that is going to be a nightmare for him. So he left to his advisors to tell him what is right and what's wrong. Now coming back to the losses, any person for that matter, Sashi, I as a businessman, I would actually expect a quarterly report from any business for that matter to see how we are moving. If he has slept on the job with Abdul Khan at the helm of FSC for that 7-year period at a loss of $300 million, I think Benny Marama should also be charged as a negligence of his duty, as a minister for sugar. Because you cannot just keep telling a person to continue doing a loss when your industry is suffering, your farmers are working hard, and at the end of the day, you do nothing when this type of losses happen.
Well, would you therefore then agree that some very, very serious allegations of financial malfeasance, corporate malfeasance, possible conflict of interests issues, abuse of office issues, etc., while Abdul Khan was CEO and executive chairman of the FSC took place?
I would say it didn't start from him. It started from Graham Clark, Navin Chandra, and then it came up to these people because when there's an opening, when people start opening up, and when people know that there is a reason and a way to do things wrongly, and when your bosses don't give a damn about it, then the whole floodgate opens. So Abdul Khan is obviously he came to know that his boss, immediate boss, is Minister of Sugar. He has nothing. He's got no knowledge about the industry, and he could play with him and the government anytime, any day, and that's how the rot started.
Now, Mr. Minister, would you know if ever there was any formal investigations taking place in this saga, or whether it's all been hushed?
Well, I'll tell you, Sashi, from my knowledge, there was some documents handed over about Abdul Khan's dealings and money transactions that was coming into his account and so forth, which again I'll disclose later. But as I said, that he actually overpowered the minister, I believe, he, because of his connections with Qayyum, the investigation that was supposed to carry on and continue, I think, was delayed. And one of the statements that Beni Marwa kept on making was, yes, we've got some figures, we've got some idea what has happened, but we are investigation, and investigation is continuing. So it took us, and as I speak, I know that the FICAC was given some documents at the time, and they were slowing the whole process. In fact, the first time the file was given, it was lost. That was I was told. It disappeared. So they had to give a second set of files, and that's how the FICAC in Fiji does. They don't go after the big sharks. They go after small people, who steal a chicken, who steal lamb chops or whatever.
All right. Well, I am absolutely dumbfounded that with allegations all over the place that there is no official investigation. FICAC should be investigating any possible corruption matters, etc. You mentioned a short while ago payments being made to Abdul Khan's bank accounts in New Zealand. Um, I've got some documents to share in just a moment. I'll bring them on the screen, but can you just quickly tell us about those payments?
Yes, Sashi. When I became the minister, I was also handed these documents because I insisted from my permanent secretary, Yogesh Karan. I said, look, I understand that there was some investigation about Abdul Khan's all his dealings, and finally I managed to retrieve the documents from him, and 8 payments that I'm surprised of, which I actually have seen, and of course you will put the copies of the documents, I believe, is Abdul Khan was paid. The first payment was paid to him on 14/8/2014 by Hyperton Impact.
Stop, Mr. Minister. Stop there. What I'll do, sir,
Okay.
can I put those on the screen?
Okay.
And I hope that it's visible, but you can talk on them because I also have a couple of things to say about that. So let me try and bring that on the screen first. And that's the first one. I don't know whether that is visible or not, but
It is
you can
visible.
talk about that one. Please go ahead. Talk about that one.
So the first one is Hyperton Impact Limited, paid to Abdul Khan's account, $50,000 in New Zealand, and the detail of payment says import of machinery parts. Second payment is,
Let's go to page 2, Assistant. Thank you, sir.
okay.
Yeah, the second one is for $50,000, I believe.
Again, yes, it's from King Power Jet Limited, paid from Kowloon. The first payment, was from Dubai. The second payment was, the first payment was from Dubai. The second payment comes from Kowloon, Hong Kong, for $50,000 and import of machinery.
All right, and we don't know what machinery, but let's move on. Let's go to the third page.
Right. Third page is Hyperton Trading again from Dera, Dubai, $50,000, import of electronics.
Yes.
Fourth.
Yeah, it says for payment for consultancy and professional services, $50,000. That's the one on the screen right now.
But from it says East Hard Tech, $50,000, and details to my summary says not given. But anyway, that you have got it is correct.
Yep.
Fifth payment goes again at $50,000 from Windshain Incorporation, Hong Kong. $50,000 advance payment for consultancy and professional services.
That's right. That's the one we were looking for.
Right.
Yeah, that's $50,000.
Yes.
All right. The next one is a small amount of $2,000 personal loan.
$2,000. I think that was just a small short change,
Right.
Short change of
Next.
2,000. Again, that comes from Hello Land Trading, Hong Kong. And that was a personal loan. I don't know why they gave a loan to Abdul Khan when he was earning so much from FSC.
Okay, the next one.
The fourth one is again from Hello trading, Hong Kong, 46,000 US personal loan.
All right.
And the final one is from Finsbury Global, Sharjah, US 49,980. Services rendered for Fiji Sugar Corporation projects in 2015.
So this is the one that I'm really interested in. Why would somebody be getting personal funds sent to them from Sharjah into the personal bank account of a subsidiary company of Mr. Khan's called Age Inc. Limited in New Zealand? And the transaction is for 72,000 New Zealand dollars. I mean, the man was employed as by FSC. And what do you have to say about the consultation process in relation to this?
Sashi, look, that last one is not an issue to me at all. The entire payments are issued to me.
Mhm.
350,000 in US paid to a person. Look, if Abdul Khan's companies, Ajinks, was buying supplies from these companies, then he was supposed to pay that company, not that company paying him in New Zealand. So
Mm.
obviously these payments have come to him as a kickback. Because I'll tell you one thing, from now my knowledge about the previous time FSC had, there were a lot of workers in FSC. There were a lot of workers in FSC during Abdul Rashid's time and others. They were on commission. They were on commission. They used to do purchases overseas and they were paid commission. So this is no different to what Abdul Khan has done, using the platform of FSC and his chairmanship, executive chairmanship, to have kickbacks. And this is very clear cut. The deposits are there, and he
All right.
he has to
Well,
explain. He has to explain to FICAC why this money was given. And I'm also worried that why the Fiji intelligence unit that handles the Reserve Bank, why are they sitting on it when this type of transactions were happening? That person, I believe, he's about to retire. He was
well,
he's
the question that beggars belief is you and I have just shared those figures on the screen. We've, as you say quite rightly, if Abdul Khan was making purchases, he would be paying the other side.
Mhm.
Now, these are monies being transferred to Abdul Khan's account. And when it clearly says consultation, it just beggars belief. Now, what are the authorities in Fiji doing? I mean, is there a cover up happening here, Mr. Minister? Is
Well,
someone
I'll tell
trying to
you.
protect someone?
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, this investigation has been for the last 6 years, 5 years, the matter. And when Penny Barama says the investigation is going on, it's continuing, how much more evidence do they require? And this person, as soon as he smelled, Abdul Khan smelled that there was something coming for him in against him, he quickly resigns and gives medical reason and flies out to New Zealand. And I believe he's currently staying in Wellington. But but look, I will not leave him alone. I'll tell you one thing: it's public money, it's public fund. We'll bring him down back to Fiji at any cost, and he has to spend some time uh, with the FICAC, get through the charges, reimburse that money back to us because that's public funds, and of course, for any other dealings that we find out thereafter, he has to pay for it and answer to it.
Well, FICAC now has a new head, I believe, and it's time that FICAC went for these big fat cats. Because what's the point of taking a civil servant, get the civil servant charged in magistrate's court, for instance, and let FICAC investigate those very, very serious matters of fraud, serious matters of corruption. That's what it is set up for. If this was Australia or New Zealand for that matter, there would be a commission of inquiry set up to investigate and to bring people to account. And unfortunately, as some of my friends say, in Fiji, we do things differently, and that I don't agree with. All right, let's leave that there. Let's look at the road ahead, Mr. Minister. Road ahead for the sugar industries. And strategies that you would like to implement. You've spoken about some of them. Now, you've also been traveling. You mentioned you've traveled to India, Thailand, Mauritius, I believe you mentioned. Now, these
Mhm.
are some of Asia's largest producers. What have you learned from these visits that might give the Fiji sugar industry a kickstart?
Sashi, well, as you know, the sugar industry in Fiji, we were totally relying on selling raw sugar, brown sugar, as you say. Now, the other countries throughout the world, they've advanced to doing other things and adding value into the sugar mill. And one of the things that we've found out is the bigger sugar producers like Thailand, Mauritius, India, Eswatini, and so forth, they actually have gone into few other things within the sugar industry and within the mills. Now, the first thing that they've done is they have set up an ethanol plant. Ethanol plant, which means that they make fuel, which again they sell locally or export. Now that has got a bigger value in terms of just only by instead of just selling brown sugar or raw sugar for the matter. Second thing that they've gone into is cogeneration, producing power, which they sell it to the grids, and that makes extra money for the mills. Thirdly, they have gone into refinery to refine sugar, and of course, that refined sugar gets a higher value and altogether. So these things should have actually been done when FSC was at its prime time in Fiji, and that's when we could have actually transformed the entire industry, giving farmers a massive price, and they would have been on the farm because they would have got a better price. So look, we have learned and we have found out. We have got now advisors, we've got people, we've got companies in overseas who are prepared to share the technology, share the knowledge, and give us some assistance so that we can also come in par with them down the line.
All right, one of our viewers, Mark McElrath, wanted to find out about the ethanol plant that you had mooted. What can you tell us about this plan?
Mark, I know him very well. He's quite keen about ethanol plant, and I'll let him know one thing that look, ethanol plant is not just a matchbox industry that I can just put it tomorrow there. Of course, we have plans, but to bring in ethanol plant to all other subsidiary or functions of FSC, we first have to give scale up our production of cane. At 1.6 million tons of cane, by putting an ethanol plant is not viable. So our first thing first is to encourage farmers, bring them on farm, increase production, and our minimum tonnage should be no less than 3.5 million tons of sugarcane before we start even thinking about ethanol plant. But that is in the plan.
All right, so the first step is increase the production before this dream of having an ethanol plant takes place.
Obviously, Sashi, as you know, it's not a cheap investment.
Mm.
It's going to cost us $100 million US, and that has to be viable. But that's on our table. The plan is on our table, and we will do that.
All right. Now, what are your strategies regarding land lease issues, and what is the impact on the future cane production? As you'd realize, this week we heard that in the Tailevu areas, landowners were deciding not to renew leases for dairy farmers.
Mhm.
This land lease issue has always been a stickler.
Yes.
What are your strategies regarding this?
Well, Sashi, when I traveled initially as a minister, right, as I told you throughout with Levu and Levu, majority of the farmers had three key issues they were talking about. Was land issue was one, number two was drainage, and number three was cane access roads. So on the land lease issues, and I understand the farmers' plight, because if they're not given a long-term lease, if they're not given a security on lease, then nobody will now work on the farm. So in this issue, myself and the Honorable Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, we all discussed that what can we do to solve this problem, because this problem was never solved by the previous government, as much as they had 16 years time to solve the problem. So the cabinet then agreed to form a committee, a consultation committee comprising of the Ministry for Lands, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Sugar, and Ministry of Itauke Affairs. Now, so we've got a subcommittee that has been moving around the country for the last 3 weeks. They were in Western Division about for a week. They were in Central Division for a week, and last week they were in Northern Division. Now, the consultation group is actually meeting the farmers, they're meeting the landowners, and they're meeting all the stakeholders to find out what is the situation and what is the problem and what is the solution we can have in the long term. And my proposal as a minister, I have requested the Eco-Care Affairs that let's extend the lease from 30 years to 50 years minimum. And they are very much in agreement with me. They are wanting to have a discussion with the board. But that is the way forward. And once we're going to have this resolution or report done, we'll get the report, what actually has been transpired, what's the solution, and what is the advices the landowners want to give to us. And we will then take it to cabinet to make a firm policy on the land issue.
All right. Now, what sort of assistance is the coalition government providing towards helping farmers with the goodwill payments to landowners?
On our program that we have, the 13 programs that we have introduced in this ministry in the last budget, is say, for example, if a farmer is asked to pay, say, $10,000 in premium to renew his lease. So the government will give one third in payment, or 7,500 is a figure which is whatever is lower. So, for example, if a farmer is charged 10,000, so the government will give 3,350 or whatever, and the farmer has to pay another the balance. And the one third will be given immediately by the government, and the 2/3 will be given time to the farmer to pay over a 5-year period.
All right. Now, talking of assistance, what assistance is your government providing the transport operators for their cartage issues, spare parts, fuel, wheel tax rebate, etc.? Are there any subsidies being considered for these subsidies?
Well, on the transportation side, Sashi, as you know, that there is a top up by the industry to the farmers if they have changed the program from rail system to lorry. That's again all been calculated on some formula. That's an ongoing thing. And as you know, that the mills they provide, the industry provides subsidy for the millers, the farmers from Reki to Penang mill. There's a cost that the government bears on. And similarly, there is some subsidy given to the farmers from Singatoka, transporting their mill to the cane to the mills to Loroka. And that's something that we are currently going through and giving to them. But we'll certainly look at more subsidy to that, to the spare parts and other things in the next budget.
Now, you'd agree with me, Mr. Minister, that in the good old days, most of the cane was transported by train. Are the railway tracks these days in a viable stage for transportation these days?
Unfortunately, not, Sashi. You know what has happened again under Abdul Khan. He actually his directive was that let's get rid of rails and go into trucks. And this is where, as you know, there were 150 trucks bought by FSC, obviously to transport cane. But currently or in future, the cheapest mode of transport is still rail. So unfortunately, what has happened, there were 3 bridges that got destroyed in the cyclone. One was in Nathanola, there's one in Bai, and one is in Singatoka. And we need to bring those bridges back to order. And it's going to cost the industry around $85 million to put those bridges back. So we are looking into that. The Prime Minister himself visited the bridges that were basically out of order. And we will look at some overseas donor partners that they can help us out to put those bridges back, and of course to bring the railway system back, because there's a lot of rails that has been dismantled, and unfortunately a lot of stealing has happened where people have taken up the rails and have sold it as scrap metal.
Whatever happened to those 150 trucks? Where are they?
Well, out of 150, currently I think 120 are operational, 30 are wrecked, sitting in the headquarters of FSC. And it's a very wrong decision that government made at the time, because what has happened when they introduced these trucks, the ordinary lorry owners who used to be transporting canes, they went out of business. So now that we actually are maintaining, it's costing FSC $2 million a year just in maintenance of these trucks. And half of the trucks, obviously, the season is only 4 month season. So the trucks are standing idle in the compound of FSC in Lambasa, Suva, and Rarawai. And before the trucks are operational again, half of their parts are gone. Half of
Perhaps,
the batteries are gone. There's a lot of due to theft, and even tires are gone. That's how it's all happening.
perhaps those trucks should be sold to the farmers.
Absolutely, I wanted to. Last year we wanted to sell it, but because of the transition, because a lot of farmers called me to say, "Look, Minister, if we're going to sell it now, we don't have any person that can carry our cane back to the mill." So I said, "Okay, well, let's give a transition period. Let's reduce all of cane lorries back, farmers back, and then of course we can resell them and basically get out of this business, because our core business should be milling, not this."
All right, I'd like you to explain something which is a bit technical. TCTS, tons cane to tons sugar, to our viewers. I understand that it is a global index and measurement of sugar production efficiency. Could you just briefly explain that to us, please?
That's very close to any sugar miller for the matter, because the tons of cane you produce that produces tons of sugar, there is a ratio to that, and the global ratio is about 8 tons of sugar, 8 tons of cane to 1 ton of sugar. That's a normal global barometer. However, our country, the mills are so old, the inefficiencies are there. Our extraction of sugar is so poor that we go as much as about 10 to 11 tons of cane for 1 ton of sugar. Now, that has to be corrected, right? Recently, as I said, I put data and stats from all other millers from throughout the globe. They're hovering around 8 to 8.5 tons. So that's how poorly our mills are performing. And I'll give you some stats on what has happened in dollar values. Now, in 2023 crop, we actually had 1,565,000 tons of cane, and we produced 139 tons of sugar. And the TCTS was 11.2. Now, if our mill was performing well, if our mill was performing well, instead of 139,000 tons of sugar, we would have produced 174,000 tons of sugar. We've lost 35,000 tons of sugar, which equates to a revenue of $240 million.
And that's a loss.
That's a loss.
$240 odd million because of that.
No, sorry. No. It's a revenue loss of $35,000.
Okay.
On that, and then what I'm saying is basically, look, what I'm saying is this: if our mills are efficient, we can produce more sugar and get more dollars out of it. See? So our TCTS was at 9, at 11.5, and today, as we speak, if we do not improve, our TCT is going to be at 11.5, which will give a loss of $52 million in the next season.
Wow. I have a viewer's question for you, Mr. Minister. This question from Para Patel. According to the Sugar Industry Master Award, sugarcane growers whose farms are further away from the mill areas and supplying cane by lorries are entitled to transport subsidy. This subsidy is an industry cost, which means that 30% is shared by FSC and 70% by growers. Now that the majority of the cane is being transported by lorries, as FSC no longer has that rail mode of delivery in many areas, and 100% of sugarcane is transported by lorries from Singatoka and Rakiraki districts. Further, this is something not in the Master Award, which is transport of cane from Rakiraki to either Mba or Lotoka, and intermill transfers from Lotoka to Ba and vice versa. Question: in the absence of clarity, the growers are kept in the dark. Can you explain whether the excess cost is forming part of the industry cost? Note that the SIT report do not show detailed actual result.
I agree with that question. I believe that is a very valid question by him or whoever that person is. However, look, as I said, I've taken charge of the industry just a year ago. I've directed the Sugar Tribunal, I've directed the Sugarcane Growers Council, and I've directed the FSC. Let's sit down and relook at the Master Award, because this Master Award has actually had its days on. We actually have to now put some real time figures and assist the farmers out and see that both parties have a win-win situation.
All right, have a break, Mr. Minister. You deserve a sip of water, and I'll come back to you in just a moment. You are watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point, and our chief guest today is the Honorable Charan Jeath Singh, the Minister for Multi-Ethnic Affairs and the Sugar Industry. Please like and follow the SSTP page if you can, and share the page as well. And I will be asking some more viewer questions shortly. Back with you, Mr. Minister, this time to discuss FICAC. Now, you've been FICAC, as I say, the Fiji Independent Commission Against Corruption. There's an investigation currently against you, and I caution you to be very careful, please, as to I don't want you to answer questions that will get you into further troubles. Now, you've been referred by the Fiji Elections Office to FICAC for a probable breach of Section 1141 of the Electoral Act. For the benefit of our viewers, let me tell you, Section 114 of the Electoral Act 2014 states, and I quote, "During the campaign period, it shall be unlawful for political parties, candidates, and their representatives, either personally or through other persons, to give or offer to any citizen money, gifts, material, goods of any value, except for campaign material, or services free of charge, to sell goods or services to persons at a preferential price, or to promise to provide any monetary fund, gift, material, goods or services of any value for the purpose of gaining or influencing votes." End of quote. My question to you, did you post on Facebook a confirmation that you had made a promise during the election campaign to build 2 toilets and a shower block at Namanandamu village? Did you do that?
Well, Sashi, look, it was a post that I had done post election, and obviously, look, I was trying to show people that, look, I am a man who walks and then talks. I did not promise specifically in that village to say that I'm going to build a toilet. I did not specifically say anything about that. What people generally is, if you're a candidate, people will come to you and say, hey, Mr. Singh, look, we got a problem in our village. We want this to be done, that to be done. And would you be able to help us out? And my general assurance was that, look, if I get in, even if I don't get in, which I did in 2014, even I didn't get into parliament. But when I went out to Kia Island and the chiefs asked me that we need 3 washrooms to be done here, without even getting to parliament, I helped them out. So the message went around throughout Vanuatu and throughout my election area that Mr. Singh is very generous, he can help us out. So that was my general assurance that, look, even when I don't get voted in, I'll help you out. So after election, I never pre-election made any specific uh, promises. So post-election, I did that, and of course, there was a spelled English that I agreed to that. I didn't mean to put that, but of course, at the end of the day, look, I haven't I haven't gone to ask for votes to get in. I promised them that I will help you out, and I've helped them out after election. And I leave it now to the election office and the FACEC to judge me out.
All right. Very quickly, though, regardless of the elections, though, you're a very giving man, aren't you? You've helped hundreds and thousands of people for over so many years, particularly around the Winston cyclone time. I remember reading reports of you and your staff personally driving out to areas and handing out food parcels, etc. That's the nature of the man you are. Am I correct?
That's true, Sashi, and I won't stop there. Whether I'm in parliament or I'm not parliament, God has given me a lot, and I will try to help people out who needs assistance.
All right, now the Fijian Elections Office found that the response provided to them by you was not reasonably sufficient to merit the dismissal of the complaint, and that there may be a probable breach of Section 1141. As you know, if found guilty of this section, you could be fined $50,000 and imprisoned for 10 years or both. How has this affected you personally and in your performance as a minister?
Sashi, to be honest, I'm, I've not been affected at all. I know I haven't done anything wrong, and I leave it the right judgment of the people that are taking care of the case or files. Currently, nobody has come to me from FICAC. Actually, I believe they're still going through seeing whether there's a merit or demerit to the whole thing. And let's hope a good thing prevails and good census prevail in the end.
I think I've mentioned this earlier on, and please be careful how you answer this, but I just need to ask you this. Do you see a difference between the lack of interest, perhaps, or the lack of purpose in investigating the likes of Abdul Khan for his alleged activities against the Fijian people, and then to your act of benevolence, of giving freely to helping the people from the poor backgrounds in Fiji?
Well, obviously, there's a vast difference in what Abdul Khan has done and what I've been doing. And as you know, that in Parliament, I did make a very strong statement about the previous FICAC director that he was sitting on the job as well. And I actually will rest my case here.
Okay.
I will leave it to that, and let's see what happens down the line.
I respect that. I respect that, Mr. Minister. So let us leave FICAC behind, as I do not want you to get into any further strife. I have another viewer's question for you. Lithiana Wangalevu asks, and I quote, any chance of asking the Minister for Sugar whether he has figures for any revenue collected in the 16 years by the Fiji First government against the government expenses on ministerial salary and other related expenses incurred to keep the industry afloat? End of quote.
Sorry, Mr. Shi, if that question be said again because I didn't get a
Sure.
clear answer.
I'll repeat the question. Any chance of asking the Minister for Sugar whether he has figures for any revenue collected in the 16 years by the Fiji First government against the government expenses on ministerial salary and other related expenses incurred to keep the industry afloat?
Well, I cannot recall anything else except I'll say, look, Nur Bano, who was the accountant and one of the related to Kayum, she was actually hired and used through her company to pay the salaries uh, of the ministers, which was not disclosed. It was not made public. So there were a lot of beneficiaries and benefactors in the whole system, and As I said, look, we don't want to go and keep digging out. Whatever comes up open to us, we will have it and we will investigate. But we are a government that we want to move forward and make things happen better for the public rather than looking at the back of what has happened. If things come up, we definitely will investigate and put it to the right authorities to investigate.
Now, there are many who have questioned the appointment of your very good friend Nithya Reddy, New Zealand based former Fiji Labour Party member of Parliament, as the chairman of the FSC Board of Directors. My question to you is, what led you to make that appointment?
Sashi, I'll tell you one thing. If you look at the history of all the chairmen of FSC, none of them, apart from Nithya, has the expertise and experience of the industry that I know of. He is a very dedicated person. He doesn't need a job to be a chairman of FSC. He's on a six-figure salary in New Zealand. And what has happened when I looked at the history of FSC, the mismanagement, the amount of abuse, I thought that Nithya, having the experience as an accountant of all the four mills, and he is the chief accountant of FSC on his final days before he got actually fired from FSC, not because he had done anything wrong, but because he was a straight shooter. He didn't want to see any corruption, which there was a big corruption at that time as well. So my association with Nithya is, look, is nothing that he's a good friend of mine. That's fine, but I, as a businessman, I as an administrator and as a minister, I like to put the right person on the job. He has got a Fiji citizenship. He has got a Fiji passport. He's got a farming background. He knows the in and outs of the mills. And I, as I said, I have the least doubt that the person I've appointed obviously has been appointed with the concurrence of the Prime Minister. Prime Minister has actually studied his background and he's appointed. And I have no apologies to make to anyone about Mr. Reddy to be appointed on the chair.
So, insofar as you are concerned, Mr. Nithya Reddy ticks all the boxes?
Absolutely, Sashi. And if anybody thinks that Mr. Reddy flies to Fiji for board meetings, no, he does not. Only on the first appointment day he was there. Obviously, he came to meet the FSC management. And currently, when he holds meeting, he holds it on Zoom, and he discusses things. And we are all networking together. Myself, Mr. Reddy, and the management, and of course other directors. And of course, if there's anything urgent which I need Mr. Reddy there for, then he'll come. Otherwise, it's all happening from here.
All right. Before I conclude today's interview, I would like to ask you a question or two about the People's Alliance Party. Can you please confirm or deny that there is a looming leadership battle within the People's Alliance Party? We've heard rumblings. What can you tell us?
So see, I'll tell you, Fiji Sun is a mischievous paper in Fiji. And their headline was that there was a rumbling that there was a leadership crisis and there was a Kamida versus Mr. Honorable Tambuya challenging Mr. Honorable Rambuka. There's nothing as such. We are 120% behind the Prime Minister. There's no question of leadership challenges. And we are fully backing the current coalition partners into this government for the next 3 years that we have to complete.
Talking of the next 3 years, do you see the three-party coalition standing that test of time for the next 3 years?
I think there's no question of not standing. There is a commitment by the three parties to be together, and of course performing. All the ministers are performing in the jobs very well, and we'll see throughout the 3 years that we all work together, and the next election we don't know what's going to happen. That's the future will tell. But for now, we are all intact.
All right, another viewer's question. This one from Giggs Droyer. Why did you join Mr. Rambuka's People's Alliance Party?
Well, again, coming back to the census and the numbers of voters, right? So look, I worked out that the Indian voters numbers are dropping by the day. Majority of the voters are Ethiopians. So the majority vote bankers of the People's Alliance came from the Ethiopia. And my supporters that who I've been working with in one level, they actually asked me, they said, look, Mr. Singh, why don't you join the People's Alliance so that it becomes more comfortable and more for us to have a reason to vote for you with our families and our friends. So, of course, I worked with Honorable Rambuka, Prime Minister. We are the only two members of parliament from the previous government. He was the Prime Minister then, and I was a member of the National Federation Party. So I worked with him. I've seen how the Prime Minister has been honest in his deliveries of promises. He worked with Honorable Jairam Reddy, got the Constitution of 1987, and I had no issues. At the end of the day, as I said, it was we were all forming coalition anyway. Whether I come from NFP or I come from People's Alliance, we are all in the government.
All right. A few days ago, as I mentioned earlier on, landowners in the Thailevu area have announced that they will not renew leases to dairy farmers. What kind of message is this going to send to the sugarcane farmers? Do you think the leasing of sugarcane farms is going to be a continual problem for the industry? At the best of times, as you know, land leasing issues have always been at the forefront of the sugar industry.
Sashi, look, as I said, this consultation that we have been doing, which has taken care of the Western, Central, and Northern, we'll wait for that report because
Okay.
as landowners can individually say something, but the report has to come collectively, and we'll then decide which way to go.
Now, Mr. Minister, maybe I haven't covered every aspect of it. What is your final message to our viewers today? What would you like to say to them?
Sashi, thank you very much for actually inviting me to your program. I think we try to cover as much as we can, and if there is anything that's left, I'm pretty sure the next year I'm more than happy to be available again
Mhm.
and to come with the progress. But I certainly hope that all our viewers throughout the world has taken a very serious message from me that the sugar industry is here to stay. We're going to work hard to make it turn around, and that's my promise.
Wonderful. And how would you describe your experience on today's SSTP program?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Sashi. When I confirmed that I was coming to this program, I had some sleepless nights because I wasn't sure which way you're gonna take me on. But you're very polite. You have accommodated me in a good way, and it's very friendly. And I think this is the way it should be. That we are not here to be given a tough time, but to share our knowledge and messages so that we can all be on the same page every time.
Honorable Charan Jeath Singh, the Minister for Multi-Ethnic Affairs and Sugar Industry, I thank you, sir, sincerely for being my chief guest on SSTP today. You have shared things about both your ministerial portfolios and, in particular, those shocking revelations about the FSC that a lot of my viewers, including me, were not aware of. I wish you and your team under both ministries all the very best and an open invitation to you for 2024. When you have more to report on your multi ethnic affairs ministry and when you have more to report on your sugar industry, please contact me and I'll be happy to entertain you as you can share your views and news with our viewers. So, once again, thank you, and I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Sashi, on the same token, I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and to all the viewers throughout the world, that they all must have a Happy New Year and a Merry Christmas, and we shall talk more next year. Naka.
Thank you, sir. Have a wonderful Sunday. God bless.
Thank you, Sashi.
Dhanyavad, Vinaka Vakalevu, and thank you to you. Well, we ask the questions that Fijians all over the world want answers to. As I say, Fijians want to know. Well, that is all for episode 57 this week. But let me remind you that this was our final program for 2023. SSTP looks forward to returning, hopefully, on 21st January 2024. I look forward to your company in the new year then. To my SSTP team, thank you for today's episode and for your assistance this year. I must also thank you, our viewers, for watching the program today, and a big Vinaka Vakalevu to those who have taken time to write their positive comments and to ask questions, etc. Thank you for your likes and emojis as well. So until the next episode in the new year, I wish you all a very safe and happy week. May your Christmas sparkle with moments of love, laughter, and goodwill, and may the year ahead be full of contentment and joy. To you and your loved ones, a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. In closing, I'll leave you with this quote from Pliny the Elder. On the subject of hope, Pliny the Elder wrote, "Hope is the pillar that holds up the world. Hope is the dream of a waking man." I'll repeat that. Hope is the pillar that holds up the world. Hope is the dream of a waking man. That quote from Pliny the Elder. Well, folks, that's all for 2023. Till the next program in the new year, I am Sashi Singh, bidding you goodbye, namaste, and ni samore. Goodbye, world.